Hi, welcome back! In this video, we'll go deeper into the Conference of Parties on Climate Change and get some answers to questions like, since the Paris Agreement, what have the COPs actually achieved through their promises and consensus? And are all human drivers of climate change truly entering COP negotiations? Or are some simply being left out? Let's go find the answers! After the 2015 Paris Agreement, Conference of Parties, the COPs, became even more critical. They are the annual meeting point where all countries review progress, negotiate new steps, assess the most vulnerable, and work to keep the Paris Agreement alive. In theory, this is where science meets diplomacy. Post-Paris Conference of Parties, the COPs did bring real progress. Countries aligned on long-term goals, strengthened national determined contributions, the NDC cycles, increased climate finance pledges, and acknowledged how dependent each economy is on the stability of the global climate system. They also placed vulnerable nations closer to the center of discussions and launched the first Global Stocktake, a mechanism to assess whether we're truly on track. These are important steps. Alongside political commitments, the Paris era has also triggered real economic shifts. Renewables have expanded, clean technologies have become cheaper, electric mobility is accelerating, and the first circular and regenerative practices are starting to emerge. We've also seen stricter transparency rules, a stronger scientific base, and, slowly but decisively, the growing inclusion of oceans and ecosystems. These are meaningful trends. But what do the data, the scientific measurements, and the real-world events actually show? Let's take a closer look. Official data reveal a consistent pattern. Global emissions are still rising. Fossil fuel exploration continues to expand. Plastic production is accelerating. Major forests keep shrinking. And industrial fishing is driving ocean ecosystems toward collapse. These aren't isolated issues. They are structural trends, and they show a world where economic growth keeps overpowering planetary limits. Climate impacts are no longer projections. They are daily news. Extreme heat, mega fires, catastrophic floods, record-breaking storms, and multi-year droughts are becoming more frequent, more intense, and less predictable. Alongside the loss of lives, homes, biodiversity, and regional stability, there is another reality. The economic cost is exploding. Every year, climate-driven disasters generate hundreds of billions, in some years over $1 trillion, in damage and recovery costs. And many countries rely on public subsidies and emergency funds to rebuild, draining budgets that should be financing resilience, adaptation, and a sustainable transition. These impacts show not only the urgency, but the enormous financial consequences of inaction. We ask whether all human drivers of climate change are truly part of COP negotiations, and the honest answer is not quite. Some important contributors to global warming still sit at the edges of the discussion. For example, the political difficulty of initiating a fossil fuel phase-out remains, as repeatedly shown in past COP negotiations. Short-lived pollutants like black carbon are often mentioned only in passing. Deforestation and land use change appear, but across fragmented agendas. The growing footprint of major technology companies is rarely addressed. despite their rising energy demand. And the oceans affected by acidification and deoxygenation still receive only limited attention. Even cumulative stressors, the way multiple pressures interact, fall largely outside the COP structure. So, while the negotiations cover a great deal, they still leave some essential pieces out. And until all human drivers of climate change are on the table, our global strategy will remain incomplete. So, after looking at the global stocktake and at what still falls outside COP negotiations, one thing becomes clear. We have the science, we have the data, and we have the global process. But we still lack a mechanism that keeps decisions aligned with the planet's real limits. Our climate and economic systems depend on natural cycles, water, carbon, nutrients, ocean circulation, that sustain agriculture, fisheries, and the basic conditions for human life. When human activity disrupts these cycles, the consequences become unpredictable. We enter a world where neither science nor economics can fully anticipate the risks. And this is why the COP process matters. It builds global consensus. But consensus is not action. Without enforcement, accountability, or a guardian of the planet's interests, political agreements cannot realign these broken cycles. And this is where a global climate authority could make a real difference. A body that represents the planet's voice, translates scientific urgency into rules, and ensures that commitments lead to measurable change. So, here is the situation. The science is clear, the trends are measurable, and the global stocktake shows exactly where we are falling behind. Yet, key drivers remain outside the negotiation logic of the COPs. Not because the science is unclear, but because the structure of consensus makes some decisions politically impossible. And this is where the idea of an independent climate voice becomes essential. A voice focused only on the planet's limits, on scientific thresholds, and on keeping countries aligned with the path the IPCC and the subsidiary bodies already describe. A voice that helps bridge the gap between what is promised and what actually needs to happen. Thank you for watching. In the next video, we'll dive deeper into the Global Climate Authority. Why this name? How it could work? What principles would guide it? And why giving the planet an independent voice may be the missing step in global climate governance. Bye!